Um, Hi, everyone. So we'll start the class in a few minutes. In the meantime, if you have any questions or any doubts, problems, please feel free to text me in the group message here, or you can also just unmute yourself and let me know. If there's any numerical or something you want me to solve, you can let me know about that also. So I think there's still 5 minutes left, so we'll start in five. Okay. Any doubts, questions? Anyone? So today I think I'll start by first discussing the class project. Okay, somebody has their hand raised. Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, ma'am. I have a small doubt regarding the mentioning of the roll number in our in our take home project. So I
Okay,
wasn't able to find it in the portal. So how do we find a roll number?
I have no clue. I don't know the interface which you guys see, and I'm not sure which place you get your roll number. But when you signed up for the course, you must have been assigned a roll number. So maybe if you check your registration details, when you signed up for this course, there must have been some email, some confirmation, something. I think you should probably be able to get it in that document.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll first just go over this class project, the take home project, which you guys have to do. And then we'll come to the V gate. And if you have any other doubts. other content. Okay, so there are three options in the take home project, as you can see. Option one, option two, and option three. So this whole thing is option one. Then this is option two. It's all in the same document. Sorry, my cat is jumping around the desk. So if something gets disconnected, please assume it's that. And I'll connect back if I drop off. And this is option three. Okay, this is all in that one PDF, which has been shared with you guys. So I hope all of you were able to find this PDF on the portal. Okay, so these are three options. Out of these three, you have to pick any one option. This is the instruction. Choose any one option for the project, one, two, or three. Okay. And this is just to let you guys pick whatever you are most comfortable with, whatever you're most able to do most easily. But whichever option you choose, please note that you're supposed to do this project entirely by yourself. No discussion, no copying somebody's answer, no use of AI. Please note that those who have copied somebody else's tutorial, project, or used AI in the past, their assignments have been rejected. So please don't, mess around with this. Either do it properly or don't do it. As far as I know, this project doesn't contribute towards your overall marks for the course, but you do get a separate certificate for completion of the project. So if you're going to do it sincerely, do it properly. It is a very easy project. It is actually not at all difficult. It has been specifically designed to be of use and value at your level, at like high school, class 10, 11, 12 level. So please, do it properly. The purpose of the assignment is not for me to look at it and feel happy and to grade you and give you marks or something. The purpose of this assignment is for you to understand the concepts of theory we have been teaching you for 7 weeks in real life, in practical life. Like so far, we've given you a bunch of videos, slides, discussed numericals, all of that. But the real value of economics is in everyday life, right? It's in applying it to your own personal lives. And, to once you understand how it applies to your own personal individual life at your individual level, you can further explore economics and see how it applies to society at large. So, but you have to first understand the basics in practical terms. So that is the idea, sentiment behind the project. Now, these are some standing instructions. Please write your answers clearly and neatly if you're writing the answers by hand. And in fact, let me take a few steps back. You have to submit the project as one PDF file. Okay, I cannot look at multiple PDFs for one person. It has to be just one file, and that file has to be a PDF. So you have freedom in terms of how you want to answer. You want to write it by hand and scan it and upload, or you want to type it in a Word document and then upload, or you want to annotate this document and enter your answers on this PDF and upload, or you want to do it on PowerPoint and then convert it to PDF and upload. That is entirely up to you. I'm not giving you any restrictions on that, whatever you're comfortable with, but it has to be legible. If I cannot read what you have written, I cannot grade you on what you've written, right? That's common sense. So please be very clear. And by clear, I don't mean just handwriting part. Even those who do it digitally, many times you put so much flowers and ornamentation in your projects that I find it hard to focus on the actual substance. So please understand that no matter how much flowers and ornamentation and decoration you put on your answer script, it will not make any difference in your answer. I'll be much happier if you did the project more sincerely in terms of doing the exercise rather than adding a lot of pictures and stuff like that. That's absolutely not necessary. In spite of my saying it's not necessary, every batch some people go and do it. I don't know why, but it really is not required. This is an economics answer script. This is not a botany, zoology, social science kind of an answer. You don't need to decorate your answer at all. Just plain simple text and numbers is all that is expected. Okay, so that said, um, this is option one. As I'm sure you'll read the instructions on your own time. This is basically an exercise of studying the market around you. And there's examples you can read. I'm not going to read the whole question, but basically what you have to do is fill out this table. Okay, you have to tabulate, pick a few items, products, goods, whatever you want to call it. It can either be like vegetables kind of items like tomatoes, potatoes, onions, blah, blah, blah. Or it can be digital goods, or it can be physical goods sold on a digital platform, or something else. Okay, again, it's up to you. There are some guidelines here, and you have to mention what type of market and what type of place, online, physically, in the marketplace, something like that. Okay. So you have to record the prices of the same good in 2, 3 different places and see if there is a difference in the prices and which is cheaper. And then based on that, based on this analysis, this table, then you will answer these short questions. So these are some short questions which you can read and you can answer based on, whatever your findings are from that table. In this table, you may be able to observe some trends or some changes in prices, etc. And based on that, you will explain the demand supply story for those goods, for those markets. And then there is a reflection. Is there anything you understood from doing this exercise? That is what the reflection is. Doesn't have to be long, just one short paragraph, maybe 3, 4 lines about, for example, what did you learn? Why is it always like people go for the cheaper good, or is that not always the case? And if it's not the case, then why do people not go for the cheaper good? Right? That is the question here. And based on your, not just the table, but the whole process of, say, talking to the sellers, checking the online thing, looking at the prices, maybe you observed it over a period of a few days, not just on one day. So you will yourself start to get a sense of, how prices move in the market. So you will have some understanding based on that. So this is where that goes. Okay. This is option one, and this is the rubric based on which you will be graded. You can check it later. The second is on the finance part of it, which is simple savings plan and interest is very simple exercise. You have to identify any one item which you want to buy at some point of time. What is its price to you or cost to you? And in how much time do you want to buy it? 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, whatever it is. And then you have to come up with a savings plan. Okay. And you will explain here how much the savings are going to be based on, whatever you have taken as the price, as the timeline, blah, blah, blah. And, whatever amount you want to save. Now, you have to keep in mind that you're going to be applying simple interest. So you're not compounding the interest in this particular exercise. So you will just be taking simple interest and the rate is 6%. The rate is given here. So this is the whole process. This is just detailing out how you're going to calculate simple interest, blah, blah, blah. And then you will answer some other questions based on whatever calculations you've already done. If, say, suppose the price increases, then how much time will it take or what will the cost be, blah, blah, blah. If the time is, say, half of what you've taken, blah, blah, blah. So all of these you will be able to answer very simply if you've understood what you're doing. You don't have to rote learn anything. You don't have to Google anything. If you've understood the exercise you're doing, this exercise, you will be able to answer the rest of the questions very easily. And this is the rubric for evaluating it. Then the third part is where we discuss and analyze, digital payments versus a commodity, or, not commodity, actually fiat payments. Okay. So in this case, we are trying to understand how much of your financial transactions are in different forms of um, payment, like cash, UPI card, etc., etc. And also, in the same time, we're trying to see how much of what you are purchasing is a want versus a need. And sometimes that is a very hard thing to classify because, when you want to buy something, it's very few things are needs. Okay. Very few things are absolutely essential for your existence. Most of the things we buy are actually wants. And in many cases, that line kind of tends to blur, which is why in economics, in the world of economics, we don't usually differentiate between wants and needs because, even though we know that there is a difference between need and a want, it's hard to differentiate. And what is a need for one person may be a want for another person. But anyway, this exercise is asking you to think about whether this is a need or a want. Okay. And this is the table you're going to fill out for this one. And this is a day diary, 3-day diary. So this is like a representative table. You don't have to stick with this table. If, for example, on day one you have 4 transactions, you can enter 4 instead of 3. Here we have just kept 3, 3, and 4 like that. But you can use this framework and add more rows if you want to. Okay. Yeah, you can add extra rows if you want to. And then you're going to see how many are cash, UPI card, other, etc., and how many are needs, how many are wants, and again some analysis questions. Then you are asked something like, what is, say, the level of trust in digital money versus cash, and how much of is want versus need. Now, the last part is, what do you think would be a good policy or a scheme so that we make people use, which can encourage people to use more of digital payments instead of cash? And you're required to think a little here. Okay, this is a um, reflection exercise where you, based on your experience of, say, um, making transactions in different formats, what you might think may be a constraint right now, what you think might be a problem right now, and how you think it could be solved. You can suggest what could be a simple policy or scheme that could improve the uptake of digital payments. Okay. And this is the rubric. So this is the whole project. That's it. Out of these 3 options, you have to pick any one and you have to submit the answer as a PDF file. So any questions so far? Yes, Prisha.
Mom, could you please scroll to the project 2? I have a doubt on that.
Project 2.
2. Yeah.
Yes.
Ma'am, so it says that you have to find the approximate cost of your goal and save for that over a period of time, right?
Yes.
But does that necessarily mean that when you save, you will be able to save the complete amount in that much time?
No, it doesn't. But that is why you're asked to think. So, for example, if you want to buy something which is aspirational, you want to, say, buy a Batmobile, you want to buy, like, I don't know, an Audi or something like that. Maybe it'll take you more than 12 or 24 months to buy something like that. So, this exercise is actually meant to make you think in that way that, say, suppose you want to buy something, how much time do you think it's going to take you to save that much money? Can you save that much money with your current income or pocket money, whatever? So when you think in this line, you will automatically understand that some items cannot be bought in the near future. Maybe you will need to wait till you get a job or something. So maybe you will pick an item which you think can be bought in this sort of a timeline, because this is something you want to see in the immediate future, right? Not something in 10 years' time, but something in, say, 1 or 2 years' time. So then you can automatically pick something which fits, with your pocket money or your current income, let's say. In India, I don't think kids have like their own income. It's usually parents' income, but whatever is your source of income, um, you see what you're able to save per month. What is the maximum you think you can save per month? And if you save for 12 months, 24 months, whatever, how much can you save? That's the whole point. The exercise is to encourage you to think about how much you think you can save and what can you buy with that.
Okay, thank you.
So you're thinking in the correct direction, basically.
Thank you.
Great. Anyone else? Any other questions? Okay, somebody is asking, does it have to be handwritten or typed? Have you just joined the class? Sahana, Shriram. Sahana, Shriram. Are you here? I'm not seeing her here. You can unmute yourself if you're able to talk. Okay, she's not apparently able to talk, but no, you can do it in whichever way you want. That is the first thing I said. I explained that for 5 minutes in the beginning of the class, that you can submit the answer in any format as long as it's a PDF and one single file. But it has to be legible and clear. If I can't read your answer, I can't grade it. So there's some other question from where you can find the roll number. I really have no idea because I don't see the interface you guys see. This also I have answered right in the beginning of the class itself. Harita J, have you just joined the class? All the folks who joined the class late, please, I don't know how you can't see it now, but you can see your questions answered later in the recorded video. I don't want to take up the class time answering the same questions again and again. And these are all administrative type of questions. If you have conceptual doubts, please ask me those. Please don't ask me administrative questions. That too, those I've already answered. Apparently, that's the government informing us about the storm. I can already see outside. Okay. Any other questions? No? So everybody's okay with the class project instruction? Okay, great. So then I'll move to the class. Give me a minute. Give me a moment. This meter is always glitching. Any questions? In the meantime, if you have any questions, you can ask me, and please always post the questions in the group chat. We're in the last class and still people are not posting the questions in the group chat. You're DMing me. I don't know what is the benefit of that, but if you have a question and you want me to answer it in the class, you should be okay with answering, with asking the question in front of the whole class. I don't see the use of anonymity at all. Okay, let's share now. Somebody's again asking me, Gaurang Shivakumaran, have you just joined the class? Please see the answer to your question in the recorded video. I cannot keep answering the same questions over and over again, that too administrative questions. I literally just said it 2 minutes ago. Where and how do we submit? I don't know. You will get you can see the instructions on your portal. Sharia Kerkar, can you post your question in the group? Yeah. Okay, we'll discuss this in the end of the class. Let me go to the class material for today. So as usual, you can join the Mentimeter PPT using this QR code or this code like the mentimeter.com and this code. So let's go to some of the questions on platforms. I think we discussed it somewhat last time, but not enough. So what really is the use of the rating system we have on Zomato? So I think, not sure if all of you are aware, but on Zomato, there's a two-way rating system. Like you can rate the restaurant and your delivery person, and the delivery person can also rate you. Like you also, as a buyer or a customer, you also get a rating. So the rating is actually two ways. Okay. And that helps solve a very important problem, which we have discussed in the past. This is related to a very classic problem, which we discussed in, I think, week 6, maybe 5 or 6. So, what do you think is the purpose of this rating system? I'm going to allow you a few seconds to answer. Okay, so most people think it is information asymmetry. Some people think it is negative externalities. So the 7 people who think it is negative externalities, do you want to explain which negative externality? Does anyone want to answer? You can unmute and answer if you want. Anybody wants to explain? Those of you who have responded to negative externality, I'm just trying to understand where you're coming from. It's not a punishment or something. I just want to hear your thoughts. Nobody? 8 people think it is negative externality. So what is the negative externality on Zomato? If there is one, what you think is the negative externality? Okay, since nobody's answering, I'm assuming nobody's confident enough to answer. So it is not solving a negative externality problem. The problem it is solving is, as most people have answered correctly, information asymmetry. So I don't know if you guys remember, we discussed this question on the market for lemons. Does anybody remember what is the market for lemons? Show of hands. If you remember the market for lemons, you can give a thumbs up or something. So I know how many people remember, how many don't. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so 7 people, roughly 7 people remember. And I don't know, there are 12, 13 people have responded on Mentimeter. I'm guessing some of them remember. So what happens in market for lemon? The market for lemons, there's like a market for used cars, right? And the problem is that the buyers don't know which car is a good car and which car is a bad car. But in a sense, a used car could be very lightly used, like just 1 year old or something, which is almost as good as new. Not new, but pretty good, like close enough to new. Okay. And there can be a car which is 10 years old, which has been used very roughly and is almost at the end of its life, right? But as far as labels go, they are both labeled as used cars. So to the buyer, okay, there's a power cut here and it's back. Okay. So to the buyer, they are both used cars. They don't know how to kind of differentiate between the two cars. So, but in reality, one car is a good car. Let's call it a peach. That's what the definition of the problem is. And the other car is a really old, end of life kind of car, which is what we call as a lemon. That's why it's called the market for lemons, right? So in this automobile market, so in this automobile market, the buyer is at a disadvantage, right? So if the buyer thinks that the cars may not be good because majority of the cars, because he doesn't know which car actually is good or bad, he'll kind of assume that the cars are not very good, and hence he will not be willing to pay a very premium price for the cars, right? So for example, if a new car costs 12 lakhs and an old car is priced at 10 lakhs, the buyer would be like, it's an old car, why should I pay 10 lakhs, right? He doesn't know that that car has been used only for like a 1 year or something like that, or maybe lesser. He'll think it's an old car. So he's not going to want to pay a premium price, right? So what is going to happen? The buyers are only willing to pay like 50% of the retail price, 6 lakh, 5 lakh, something like that. So what is going to happen is eventually that the sellers who are selling good cars, they exit the market. They're not getting the price they want and they cannot sell at such a low price. So they exit the market altogether. So what is left in the market are only lemons. All the peaches are gone. And hence, now who is disadvantaged? Both the buyer and the seller, right? The sellers also, or actually both are not really disadvantaged in this case. It's mostly the buyers. Now the buyers have only like a bunch of old cars, and it's not really a worthwhile kind of a market for the buyers, where all cars are really, really old and bad. Like it's only lemons are left. Why will somebody want to buy a car like that? So the buyers also exit the market, basically. And hence the whole market itself collapses. That is the classical case of market for lemons. This is what we call as information asymmetry, where only one side knows something more about the product or service or something, the other side doesn't. And usually it's the seller which doesn't know. Now, I hope everybody understands the market for lemons. Yes? Please show of hands, give a thumbs up or something if you understand it. Okay, I'm not seeing much, but all right. 5. Okay. I hope you understand it because it's an important concept. It will be good for you to understand it. So now imagine a similar thing happens on Zomato. What if there is no rating system? You don't know who's a good buyer and you don't know who's a good seller, right? And on Zomato, there's also a third agent, the delivery person. So, some delivery persons can do really weird things. Like one time, I know this because this actually happened. This delivery person actually went off with somebody's order and never delivered the order at all. It was a big cake. And both the seller and the buyer are confused about where their order is. And the delivery person was like off grid. He disappeared with the whole big cake. Right. And this is just one very funny incident I know of personally, but it wasn't my cake, but I just know that it happened. But there are many things like this which have occurred in the past. So there has to be a way to weed out people who reduce the value of the market, right? So if a person behaves in this kind of a manner, the customer, and in this case, actually, both the seller and the buyer are agents on the platform. They should be allowed some mechanism to give feedback or rating. 1 second. So they should be allowed some mechanism to give some kind of rating, some kind of feedback, so that the lemons are not participating or not dominating the market, at least, right? Because if this kind of behavior is kind of, approved, then everybody will think, oh, they can join Zomato, start delivering. Can everyone please keep yourselves on mute? I don't know who it was, but I got some really bad feedback. Anyway, so that is the idea behind this. And there is a reason why I'm explaining this in so much detail. I hope you guys have understood this concept because it is an important concept. Okay, so this is the correct answer. And information asymmetry is exactly this. If you don't know which delivery person is kind of going to disappear with your cake, you won't really know whether to trust Zomato as a whole, as a market or not, right? If we have a rating system, the lemons can slowly exit the market on their own because they won't get any business in, rides, whatever. Is this clear? I hope it is. So I'll move forward. Now, the next question is on the digital platforms, AI-based platforms. A very simple question, like in the attention economy, what is the primary scarce resource that Netflix and others compete for? Okay, I think this almost everybody has understood. This is user time and attention. Okay. This is self-explanatory, I think, so I'm not explaining this. A major risk of algorithmic decision making is what? Okay, so I think most people have kind of understood. So I don't know, some people have said zero predictions and more transparency. How is more transparency risk from algorithmic decision making? If there's more transparency, that's a good thing, right? Why would that be a risk? And similarly, zero predictions. Why would there be zero predictions if you're using AI, if you're using an algorithm? So sometimes you have to learn this process of elimination, right? Sometimes I'm not saying you should do that, but I'm just saying that if you're doing an MCQ type of question anywhere, not just in this exam, anywhere, some of you may be wanting to write JE, some of you may be taking some other medical exam, some other exams where you have MCQs. If you don't know the answer, you should at least be able to use the process of elimination. So there are two ways to answer the question. One way is you find the correct answer and you mark the correct answer. Second way is you don't know the correct answer, but you can find out what is the wrong answer, right? Now there are 4 options, A, B, C, D. Out of A, B, C, D, you don't know which one is correct, but you can sometimes determine that certain options cannot be correct. So for example, you see in a question, and option number A and option number C cannot be the answer. So now you just have to choose between B and D. So that is your that still gives you a higher chance of landing with the correct answer than picking between A, B, C, and D. That is what you guys are doing wrong in this question. How can more transparency be a risk? The word risk and transparency don't go together. So first option cannot be correct. More free data. How is free data a risk? It's not a risk, right? If you have free data, why would that be a risk? Or it can be maybe, but the way the answer is written, that's hardly likely. Okay, less probability that more free data is correct. Zero predictions. If there are no predictions, then what is the risk for? Zero predictions cannot be the correct answer. So eventually, what you're left with is bias and privacy loss. Bias and privacy loss at least sounds like a risk, right? So the answer is bias and privacy loss. Did you guys understand what I explained just now? How you can eliminate the options which you think cannot be correct? I'm guessing you might already be knowing this. Many people already do this. We used to do this. But in case you have never thought of questions in this way, this is a good method to use when you don't know the correct answer. Okay. Anyways, this is just a class, so it doesn't matter. In an exam, it will matter, and in maybe some important exams in your life, it may matter a lot. So bias and privacy loss is the risk, and that is because we know that algorithms can perpetuate a certain bias, right? So for example, if the people who wrote the algorithm wrote it with certain biases, then the algorithm is only going to continue that bias. This algorithm cannot think for itself that this is right and that is wrong. Algorithm will just carry on that bias, right? And privacy loss is obviously something of a risk. So that is the correct answer. Okay, let's go to the next question. This is again on the algorithm side of Uber, Zomato, and Netflix. You can again use the same process of elimination, which I just explained. Giving you a few seconds to think. Okay, so I think most of you have it right. This sequence, data, prediction, judgment, and action, is how all of these platforms are kind of hard coded to work. Like that is, they acquire the data and then they make a certain prediction using that data. And then from that prediction, a certain judgment is taken about what action should be taken. And then that action is taken. Okay, so I think this is also more or less clear to everybody, so I'm not explaining it further. And this is a very fundamental question about all of economics. Why do you think that is the case? Why do you think we cannot have everything we want? Right. So we are not really in that age or time where lack of technology is a problem. We have technological solutions to almost every problem. But at the same time, technology is also limited by resources. For example, you have the technology to generate power, but even then, no matter which kind of power you want to generate, every kind of power generation process does require some limited resource, right? Even, okay, you may say solar power, the sun is infinitely available. Yes, sun is. But what about the ingredients, not ingredients, but like the component materials required to build this solar panel. That is not infinite and that is not readily available everywhere. So, no matter what you build, you want to build a windmill, sure, wind is freely available, but the materials required to build the windmill are not infinitely available, right? Similarly, you can drill down everything back to resources. Almost everything we own, we possess, we're surrounded by comes from some basic resources. Your computers, your phones, your boats, everything goes back to some resource or the earth or the other, which comes from nature. Even if you manufacture it in the lab, even for that lab, you require some resources, right? The lab will require power, require water, blah, blah, blah. So in the end, the resources are limited. So even if you have infinite solutions in terms of technology, and you also, even if you have like the perfect policy in place, right? Poor planning can be a reason why you don't get things. But the fact remains that even if you have perfect planning, even then there are limitations to how much you can get, right? Poor planning can be a reason why poverty persists, and better planning, better policy can say eliminate poverty, can bring abundance, but it cannot, uh, you know, address the fundamental lack of resources. So that is the answer. Okay, moving forward. So this is something we discussed in one of the earlier weeks. What is a positive incentive that drives behavior? So it's a positive incentive. We're asking what a positive incentive. Fines are negative incentives. Fines are um, um, sort of punishing somebody for doing something. That's not a positive incentive. That's a negative incentive. Same as late fees or traffic tickets. They're all kind of like a fine. Right? They all work, they all drive behavior, but they're negative incentives. The only positive incentive here is discounted offers. A very easy question actually, but I don't know why two people got it wrong. Okay. Now this is from the chapter on currency, I think. What is the primary role of the RBI? And I've asked RBI because it is the main bank, central bank for India. In other countries, it may be some other central bank, like Bank of England, or I think it is the Bank of England, but at least in the US, we know it's the Federal Reserve, and so on and so forth in the other countries. The names are different in other countries, but the purpose of the central bank remains more or less the same. So it's good. I'm actually happy that most people have it right. It serves as the bank of banks or the bank to banks, right? The bank which serves other banks, so to say, and it kind of protects monetary stability. Okay, good. Um, yeah, what are the three key resources in the modern economy that one should not treat casually? So the key word here is modern economy. Modern economy. Give me a few seconds to think. Okay. So I don't know, I'm not sure why most of you got this wrong. Actually, data algorithms and platforms are not resources. They are just like markets, right? Or data could be a resource, but algorithms and platforms are not exactly resources in the true sense of the word. Land, labor, and capital used to be resources in the 19th century um, studies characterization of economics. What we're talking about is the modern economy, and I don't know, this is actually there right from the slides. Time and attention, I'm sure you understand why. Money is just one more aspect of it. Time is money, right? So, where you spend your money matters. And time and attention are, we just had this question on attention economy. We're now in the world of attention economy. Time and attention are not the same things, but analogous things, right? So this is the three these are the three more uh, crucial sort of resources in the modern economy. Is this clear? I think a lot of people have this are not clear on this. So does this make sense? Any questions? Okay, so let me answer some other questions some people have posted in the group chat. So one question is about the final exam. So I don't know when the final exam is. I'm not sure. I don't have the date actually. You will get all the formal announcements about that. But the final exam, I can answer the second part of your question. That is, yes, the final exam will also be MCQs, pretty much like your graded and practice assignments. And there will be no subjective questions. It's only MCQs. Okay, and I think the exam will be for 1 hour. So you should get like a formal announcement or something for your final exam. But you don't have to worry at all about the exam if you have done all the graded assignments or the practice assignments, if you have paid attention in the class, then you should be good. The level of questions in the final exam will be the same as that of graded assignments. It's not going to be more difficult. Somebody else is asking to share a few pointers on what you could do after the course to build up on your learning. Well, you can study economics for one. If you like, you can study economics at the undergrad level, like bachelor's or something, if you really like it. Otherwise, even if you don't pursue it as a full-time course, you can always take online courses. There are many undergrad level online courses. You can find uh, many online learning platforms like edX, edX.org. There is, I mean, these are just my personal recommendations. This is not the official recommendation, okay? If you want, after this course, you can check out courses on economics on these platforms. A second, I have to search this one. We Windows. Yeah. There is an MIT OpenCourseWare also, and there is also the formal learning platform. So this is mitxonline.mit.edu. That is the coursework, like formal courses by MIT. These are like you can enroll in this, you can take it for credit also, perhaps. I'm not sure exactly how much of this you can, but I mean, you can do, like, you can study there. And then there are other places where you can, if you want to just study for your own self, you can also look at OCW. And again, these are my personal recommendations. These are places which I go to when I want to learn something, and I'm still learning. I'm still taking courses while I'm also teaching courses because that's what academics do apparently. So, and I enjoy that. That's also why I do that. But you are at an age where learning should be fun, or at least I hope so. And these are just some of the courses, but there are also many other places. There's Coursera. I don't know if you guys have checked out these places, Coursera.org. So you can take courses on Coursera also. And then there's like a gazillion places also where you have online courses. But these are some of the ones which I know have really good courses. And I have taken courses on these portals, not so much on Coursera, but edX and MITx definitely. And OCW I refer to all the time for teaching, for learning, everything. Okay. And don't get overwhelmed. This will have a lot of courses at all different levels. So what we just studied is just like not even the tip of the iceberg. It's like just scratching the surface. So you've only just been introduced to economics. If you want, you can, sky's the limit. You can keep learning for the rest of your life, right? Are there careers for economics and psychology today? Oh, of course, definitely. I mean, economics is one of the, I don't know about psychology. I'm not from that field, so I can't answer about psychology, but economics definitely. If you study economics, undergrad, masters, you can get into all types of jobs. There's obviously the banking sector, finance, all of that. If you are interested in finance, that is. Then there's a whole set of work you can do in journalism if that's the kind of thing that appeals to you. Like, all these platforms like Bloomberg, Economist, these are like very niche journalism where economics understanding really matters. Then there are business consulting roles where economics is very, very crucial, very important. And there is an entire set of space for policy. So if you want to get into economic policy, there is a whole lot of organizations which consult with governments, with businesses, etc., to advise on how to go about in policy making. And then there are other jobs. There can be like usual industry jobs, like some of the most famous economists today are actually in actual economist jobs in prestigious organizations. So let me remember. One second. Let me tell you some of the names. There is this book, Halvarian. Yeah, I think Halvarian is a book we use very commonly. He's an American economist. And I think he works at Google. So he's an economist at Google. Okay. Similarly, there are many economists who work as economists in really big corporations like Anthropic, like Google, like Microsoft, etc. So there is a lot of job options in economics. Depends on what you actually like and how good you are at it. Of course, you have to be good at it to get a good job. You're asking about a concentration of economics and psychology together. So I don't think there is a concentration for psychology, but there is something called behavioral economics, which sort of brings together some of the insights from psychology. If you see the work of Richard Taylor, he got a Nobel in behavioral economics. You can look that up if you want. We studied the nudge theory. The nudge theory comes from Richard Taylor. And he has done some other work also. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Sorry. So there is some work, but exactly where you can find jobs in that, I'm not aware of it because that's not my field. So I don't really know, but you can explore it and see. Economics by itself, yes. Behavioral economics, I'm sure there are applications, but I can't answer it off the cuff. I'll have to think. You're again asking me where you can find your roll number. I don't know where you can find your roll number. I'm not enrolled into the class. I'm an instructor. I don't see the interface you guys see. So please follow up with the administrative team for your roll number. And when you registered for the course, you must have got some email document, something on which you must have received a roll number. I don't have that, so I cannot answer you where you can look for it. Is there any other question? Okay. Somebody says financial advisor. Well, financial advisor is a very, very niche role and depends. I mean, not everybody can just go and become a financial advisor to the finance minister, for example. That is a very difficult thing. Okay, so if you don't know where you can find your roll numbers, you will have to contact the administrative team. I'm not the person who can answer this question. So please don't keep asking me. I already answered this multiple times that I don't know where you can find your roll number. And I'm getting irritated because I would like to discuss actual subject and not administrative things in this limited 1 hour we get. Somebody's asking what do you mean? It does involve some psychology, though, right? What involves psychology? What is your question? Pranav MV, what is your question? No, financial advisor does not involve psychology. Financial advisor requires a very thorough understanding of finance and economics. Psychology is maybe a very limited part of it, and only to the extent that, maybe you want to think about game theory instead. In fact, not psychology per se. So, financial advisor, again, I don't know what is your understanding of financial advisor, but financial advisor, if it is to say the finance minister, that is a very, very niche role. And maybe there are only 2 or 3 people in the whole country who become financial advisors. So it's not a career, I would say, everybody can pursue. But of course, you can, study and work your way towards it. But I don't think studying psychology is the way. If you want to be a good financial advisor, you should study finance. In what way chartered accountancy? No, chartered accountancy is not the same thing as economics. Chartered accountancy is accounting and, seeing assets, liabilities, understanding the flow of cash, all of that is chartered accountancy, it may help you understand finance to some extent, but it is in no way, there's no overlap as such between economics and chartered accountancy. They're 2 very different career paths. Any other questions related to this course or studying economics further, or what you want to explore later? Till what extent will economics be there in CA? What is CA? Chartered accountancy, you mean? Again, I don't know. I didn't study chartered accountancy, so I have no idea to what extent it was there. But I think those who study commerce, the commerce stream, I think they study some level of economics. But to what extent, again, I don't know, because I didn't study chartered accountancy or commerce. Is there scope for economics and environmental science? You mean like environmental economics, I think. Right? Annabelle Thomas. Is there scope for economics plus environmental science? Yes, I am an environmental economist. That's my field. I'm an environmental resource economist. So yes, definitely. There is a growing interest in the field. In fact, like there's a whole lot of discussion, a lot of steering towards, achieving our SDG goals and implementing sustainability principles in businesses, in all aspects of the economy. So while as of now, the scope is there, but it's still not as much as, say, in Europe or something. But by the time you guys become ready for the job market, I think there will already be a lot more scope. So again, Pranav, I don't know what you're asking me. Is so for raw materials, I don't understand what you mean by raw materials for what. What course do you take if you want to become a behavioral economist? You at undergrad level, I don't know if you will have the option of studying behavioral economics, but you should study bachelor's in economics, BS or BA in economics. Depends on which college you go to. I mean, so you can see uh, what is BBA. Again, I think it would be better if you do a bachelor's in economics, do the maths, focus on maths, and then do MBA if you really want to go to business administration. I'm not sure BBA by itself is going to be uh, rigorous enough. I mean, see, if you study like a BA or a BS in economics, the specialization you can always choose later. At this stage, the specialization which you think you want to choose is only one of the options available to you. There may be many things, and when you study them, you may feel like, oh, I find this also very interesting, right? So don't limit yourself to the specific field right now. I would say go for a course which is more focused on economics. And it's very jump from, say, an undergrad in economics to an MBA or to some business role, even without an MBA, rather than doing the very super focused BBA kind of a role, kind of a course. What undergrad course you should take? You can find an undergrad, all undergrad courses in like BA, BS in economics will include quant. Or they all include quant. There's a lot of maths in undergrad economics. How the topics are picked for this course, I don't know. This is created by Professor Vimal. I'm only teaching. The course was actually designed almost entirely by Professor Vimal. I let him know that you guys were happy with it. Okay, I think we're out of time. More or less, I think I've answered all your questions. And yeah, I really hope you guys find this interesting. And I don't say, I haven't really said this before. So actually, I mean it that this batch was the most engaging and most involved batch. And I'm really happy with how actively you guys participated in the class and how you answered questions. And I hope you got some value out of this course. It was actually very interesting, very nice for me to teach you guys. And it was good to see so much enthusiasm from students, even though I got a little irritated in between, but then that's okay. That's normal. Okay, so all the best for your exam and for all your future attempts. And if you still have questions from the course, you can post in the Google discussion forum, and I will try to answer all your questions. Okay, all the best. Thank you. Bye.